Dive deeper than the headlines with True Dinar Inside. Uncovering the real stories behind the global currency shifts. For years, you've been told to wait for a single, earth-shattering event, a magic button that would change everything overnight. The narrative has always been simple: watch Iraq, wait for the revaluation, and your patience will be rewarded with a fortune. But what if I told you the entire game has already changed, and while everyone was staring at Baghdad, the real move was being made silently in the boardrooms of New York, Washington, and Frankfurt? Forget everything you thought you knew about the timeline, because the major shift isn't coming from a desert nation's central bank announcement, it's being engineered by the very pillars of the Western financial system itself. The whispers you're hearing about US banks preparing aren't whispers about the dinar, they are the deafening roar of a global financial system bracing for impact, and the currency reset you've been anticipating is happening in a way almost no one predicted. Let me paint the real picture for you, one backed by federal reports, SEC filings, and the cold, hard strategies of investment giants. The year 2025 isn't just another year on the calendar. For America's biggest banks, it's a line in the sand. Behind closed doors, legal teams and compliance officers are working overtime, not because of Iraq, but because of a looming political earthquake here at home, the US presidential election. Insider reports from Bloomberg and Reuters detail how institutions like JP Chase and Bank of America are conducting massive internal stress tests, gaming out scenarios from a potential regulatory overhaul to shifts in international trade policy. Their number one concern? Volatility. They are fortifying their balance sheets, not for a specific currency pop, but for a period of unprecedented uncertainty in the cornerstone of global trade, the US dollar itself. This is the first crucial twist. The banks aren't preparing for the dinar, they are preparing for a world where the dollar's dominance is no longer an absolute guarantee, a world where alternative financial channels begin to matter. And this is where our story takes its first dark turn. For over a decade, the online dinar community has been fed a steady diet of hope, with insider sources pointing to secret meetings and coded statements. Yet, if you cross-reference this with hard data from the International Monetary Fund's latest Article 4 consultation on Iraq, a stark reality emerges. The Central Bank of Iraq's primary, publicly stated goal is not a spectacular revaluation to make foreign holders rich. It is achieving monetary stability and de-dollarizing its own domestic economy, getting its own citizens to stop hoarding greenbacks and use their dinars. Every policy move, from adjusting interest rates to introducing new currency notes, is aimed at this internal control. The promised RV as envisioned by gurus would be a catastrophic destabilizing event for Iraq, flooding their economy with unimaginable, uncontrolled purchasing power from abroad. So, if the banks aren't preparing for it, and Iraq's government isn't planning it, why does the sensation feel more real than ever? The answer lies in a terrifying convergence. The bank's defensive posture against dollar volatility and Iraq's slow, grinding journey toward a slightly stronger, more stable currency are about to be swept up in a third, far more powerful current, the deliberate, coordinated move by the BRICS Plus alliance to dismantle the dollar's monopoly. When Saudi Arabia agrees to sell oil in currencies other than dollars, when China and Russia settle a $200 billion trade deal in yuan and rubles, and when France completes its first LNG purchase in Chinese yuan, these aren't isolated news blips. They are individual threads being woven into a rope strong enough to pull the global system off its axis. The US financial institutions see this rope. They see the quarterly reports showing a slow but steady decline in the dollar's share of global reserves. They are not stupid, they are survivors. Their preparation is for this broader, slower-burning crisis of confidence. The genius and tragedy of the current moment is that the decades-old dinar hope has accidentally become the perfect emotional vessel for people to sense this real, coming storm. The quiet preparation you feel in the air is real, but its target is misidentified. The iceberg isn't the IQD, it's the slow-motion collision of the post-World War II financial order. And as the banks quietly build lifeboats designed for a new, multipolar monetary ocean, a profound question remains: in that new world, what becomes of the dreams anchored to the old one? The lifeboats are being built, but the invitation list is not what you think. Now, you might be thinking, if all these massive global shifts are underway and the banks are truly battening down the hatches, where does that leave the Iraqi dinar? This is where the story pivots into its most crucial, and for many, its most heartbreaking, chapter. For the past decade, the hope for the dinar has been a North Star for millions, a belief held so deeply it transcends mere investment. But to navigate what comes next, we must first separate the agonizing reality from the intoxicating fiction. According to expert analyses and market insights as recent as October 2025, the Iraqi dinar remains in a state of managed stability, effectively pegged at around 1,300 to 1,310 IQD per US dollar, supported by substantial foreign exchange reserves of roughly $95 billion. The Central Bank of Iraq's (CBI) primary mission, echoed by the International Monetary Fund, is not a spectacular, windfall revaluation but achieving domestic monetary stability and reducing its own economy's dependence on the US dollar. In fact, the CBI has publicly denied predictions of an imminent exchange rate shift, calling them attempts to unsettle the market and erode confidence. The revaluation or RV narrative, while phenomenally persistent, is classified by financial experts as a speculative myth, a story that capitalizes on Iraq's vast oil wealth and the dinar's low nominal value to sell a dream of impossible percentage gains. Here is the first brutal twist within the twist. The very global de-dollarization movement that is causing Wall Street to sweat is the same force that Iraq is trying to harness for its own survival, but in a way that crushes the revaluation fantasy. Iraq isn't trying to make its currency explosively valuable on the global stage for foreign holders, it is desperately trying to make its currency stable and trustworthy enough for its own citizens to use at home, to break its own internal dollar addiction. Every policy move, from banning dollar cash withdrawals to introducing new currency notes, is a step in this internal, grinding battle for sovereignty, not a secret signal to overseas speculators. This brings us to the explosive, viral rumors that seem to give the old hope new life. Reports that banks like Chase are preparing new dinar exchange rules for 2025. The chatter is everywhere: new identity checks, appointment-only systems for large exchanges, advanced counterfeit detection. It sounds like a blueprint, doesn't it? Like a quiet admission that the event is near. But let's apply the ruthless logic of the new financial world we just outlined. Major US banks are, indeed, in a perpetual state of upgrading compliance and security systems. They are preparing for everything and nothing specific simultaneously, for increased regulatory scrutiny, for the rise of digital fraud, for the possibility of higher volumes in any foreign currency activity. Interpreting these universal banking upgrades as proof of a specific, secret dinar event is a classic case of mistaking the scaffold for the building. The banks are building a fortress of compliance capable of handling a more volatile, multipolar currency world. That fortress might one day process dinars, but it is being built because of the US election, because of BRICS, because of crypto, not because of a whispered RV date. This is the second, more sophisticated trap. The old gurus pointed to fake credit lines and international agreements. The new narrative co-opts real, observable facts, yes, banks are changing rules, and spins them into a tailored confirmation bias. It makes the believer feel smart, like they're seeing the hidden wiring behind the walls. But the truth is, you're seeing the wiring for an entirely different electrical grid. And in the midst of this, the market itself convulses on rumor. Just recently in early December 2025, a brief spike in Iraq's parallel dollar rate was officially dismissed by a top financial advisor as colored noise, a temporary fluctuation driven by speculative rumors in informal channels, not structural economic pressure. This is the ecosystem: real banking changes, real global stress, and real Iraqi reforms get funneled into a rumor mill that creates brief, exploitable spikes of hope, which are then used to validate the entire prophecy. It's a self-perpetuating machine powered by the very real anxiety of the dying dollar era, but it is pointed in the wrong direction. The painful, liberating question we must now ask is not when will it happen, but what if the thing we've been waiting for is a decoy, and the real transformation is something else entirely, something that requires a completely different kind of preparation. So we arrive at the final, and most critical, crossroads. We've mapped the vast defensive preparations of the global banking system. We've dissected the complex reality of the Iraqi dinar, separating the enduring national project of stability from the speculative fantasy of a windfall. Now, you're faced with the ultimate choice: what do you do with this information? Do you cling to the old story, waiting for a validation that may never come from the sources you expect? Or do you pivot your focus to the real, actionable shift that is already dictating the moves of every major financial institution on the planet? The call to action from the old narrative was simple: wait, hold, and believe. But in this new reality, that kind of passive hope is the riskiest position of all. The real call to action is to become a different kind of observer, a forensic analyst of the global financial system itself. Stop watching for secret codes from Baghdad and start monitoring the public statements from the Federal Reserve, the policy shifts from the Central Bank of Iraq, and the trade agreements between BRICS nations. For instance, while rumors fly, the Central Bank of Iraq's actual, documented work involves a complex deletion of zeros initiative, a form of redenomination aimed at simplifying the currency for domestic use, not a revaluation for foreign profit. This technical process, studied in countries like Turkey and Brazil, is about efficiency and control, not creating overnight millionaires. Your new evidence file shouldn't be filled with guru predictions. It should be filled with IMF reports on Iraq's economic growth projections, charts tracking the slow but steady decline of the dollar's share in global reserves, and analyses of how US banks are stress testing for political volatility. This is the playing field now. The quiet preparation is for this multi-front war on dollar hegemony. The question is no longer is my dinar about to revalue, but how do I position my understanding and my assets for a world where economic power is redistributing? This is not a message of doom, but a clarion call for empowerment through clarity. The greatest leverage you have is no longer a speculated upon currency note, it is the knowledge of the true tectonic plates that are shifting. By understanding that the Iraqi government's priority is battling internal dollar dependence and modernizing a banking sector where state-owned banks still control over 85% of assets, you see a story of sovereign struggle, not a secret giveaway. By recognizing that global de-dollarization is a decades-long trend, not a single event, you free yourself from the anxiety of missed dates. So, here is your true, powerful call to action. First, shift your source portfolio. Unsubscribe from the echo chambers that only feed you one narrative. Follow true financial news, central bank announcements, and geopolitical analysts. Second, redefine your success metrics. Instead of measuring time by RV dates, measure it by tangible milestones, the signing of a new oil trade deal in yuan, the quarterly report of a major US bank citing geopolitical risk as a primary concern, or the next official inflation data from Iraq, which has shown recent improvement. Third, and most importantly, become a communicator of reality. You now possess an analysis that cuts through the noise. Share this perspective. Challenge assumptions not with hope, but with data. In doing so, you do more than protect yourself, you become a beacon for others lost in the fog of speculation. The future of finance will not be won by those who guessed right about a single currency. It will be navigated by those who understood the currents of the entire ocean. The banks have their lifeboats. It's time to build your own, not out of wishful thinking, but out of steel-reinforced knowledge. The real investment was never just in the dinar, it was in your own financial intelligence. That is the only revaluation that is guaranteed to pay dividends, regardless of what happens in Baghdad or on Wall Street. The quiet preparation is real. Now, so is your mission. See through the story, understand the system, and prepare for the world that is actually coming.